taking a little break. We will move along and we'll see if we can get caught up. So now we're on to athletics, physical education, RC 11.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thanks, Mr. Manfredonia.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. I'll just highlight a couple of the line items in the athletic budget RC 11. Just want to thank the board for its continued support of the athletic programs at Darien. The robust offerings we have for our student and our student athletes does not go unnoticed, and we do appreciate everything the board has done to support athletics, in very difficult times. So first, I'd like to point out line item 10-10-12, which is a new line item, which brings unified sports to its own line item. We've had unified sports at the high school for several years now. This line item now brings unified sports not only at the high school, but also the middle school. It offers us the opportunity to expand our program to offering both high school and middle school unified sports to those student athletes in those two schools. Line item 10-2004 is officials. There's a slight increase in that line item for next year to account for the police for the hosting of the Turkey Bowl, which will be held at Darien High School in November of 2022 on campus, I should note. Line item 10-10-02, which is stipends for coaches. We are requesting 2 new coaches in this in next year's budget. First is the girls rugby coach. We've had a volunteer program in place, a volunteer coach in place the spring before COVID, and then obviously nothing during the COVID season. They started this 2019 season with a couple of practices, about 4 or 5 girls who expressed an interest in a program. Obviously, we do have a boys program and started the girls program a couple of years ago. Nothing during the spring of 2020. And then last spring, we expanded that program where they actually had a few competitions and some games. So we'd like to bring girls rugby now in line and put it in the budget in line like we have with the boys program. We're also asking for a second assistant coach for freshman field hockey, a second coach in general. That is to show the increased enrollment in that program. To better serve and keep the number of students to coaches ratio in line at the freshman program for freshman field hockey. And then last, account 10-2001, which is a general equipment uniform account. You'll see that in that account will be new uniforms for boys volleyball, cheerleading, away football, boys and girls hockey, as well as girls basketball in that account for next year. Happy to take any questions the board may have on these or any other items in the RC11 budget.
Thank you very much. I will open it up to board questions, RC11 athletics. Cameron.
I just have a comment. I'm thrilled to see unified sports expanded to three seasons at the middle school. There is definitely a need for that, and I think it's wonderful. So thank you for taking that on this year.
Thank you, Mrs. McCannon. I've seen it at the high school and participated at it, the high school in the Middlesex, and it is an incredible program. And I think the numbers just keep increasing. So it's great. Mrs. Best.
Thank you. I saw that too. I think that's wonderful. 3 seasons. I was curious about the opportunities for competition. I don't think we have any other athletic programs at the middle school that compete. Is this a different, do we just consider it differently because this is a different kind of program?
The opportunities to compete are usually with other schools. And so we would partner with those schools to have a end of year culminating experience like we do at the high school.
Okay, but we don't have competitive Middlesex teams in general where we have general.
No, correct. We do not. There's no competitive interscholastic teams at the middle school level.
Okay, so this is different. Got it.
So I participated in the first one. Mrs. Klein was there up at the high school. I mean, it was the high school unified sports, and we were up at Westport, and it was just soccer games between a bunch of schools, and it was just a phenomenal experience.
I remember you talking about it. Sounds great. It's just since we don't do it for other programs at the middle school, I was curious if that's something to consider, that now we're going to be providing competitive opportunities athletically for unified sports at Middlesex, but not the other sports programs.
We are. I would say that a lot of times middle school opportunities for town competition is handled at travel levels. And I think this gives unified students an opportunity to also compete,
Thank you.
by town as well.
Good questions. Thank you. Mrs. Parent.
Thank you. Thanks, Mr. Manfredonia. I'm curious, on page 10, it mentions the non-cut policy. Is there a non-cut policy? What's happening?
So we try to, as many programs as we possibly can, to have no cuts, especially at the freshman level. We believe that when freshmen come into the school, we just want to give them an opportunity to experience at least a year of high school athletics. And so we try to keep freshmen as best we can in as many programs as we can. It can't be always attained that way, but we try to at least keep freshmen on freshman teams. And I think by adding that second freshman coach, it will allow us to continue that policy, as well as increase a second coach to show the increased enrollment numbers in that program.
Okay, so it's not a policy. Like you're not saying.
It's-
So there is still a chance a freshman could be cut next year, but this is hopefully going to.
I'd say it's probably more of a practice than a policy.
Okay, thanks.
Mrs. Achman.
Sorry. Chris, I will say, in your write-up, you did a good job of a no-cut recommendation. I would just ask that maybe, for clarification for the public, we strike that word policy on page 10, because there is no policy about non-cut, and we stay with Mr. Manfredonia's language of a non-cut recommendation. But can you talk a little, I got confused when you were talking about freshman field hockey. Is it a second coach for freshman field hockey?
Yes, sorry for the confusion. We have one coach currently. We're asking for a second.
Okay, and how many other freshman teams have two coaches for their freshman team?
Off the top of my head, I can think of at least two. I'd have to go through. I think if you give me a little more time, I'd have to go through each
Yeah, no
team
rush.
by team. I think I can think of at least two others right now that have a second coach at the freshman level.
Okay, so
I'm
yeah.
sorry,
I'm not a rush.
three.
Okay, and so are we still going, that's based on head coach desire and student participation?
Correct.
How we decide whether we want that?
And enrollment numbers. Yep.
Okay, and then lastly, and I ask this so we can start to understand as we're adding FTE, that's kind of where I'm stuck. And I know this isn't an FTE, it's just another coach, but does that cause problems the following year when we don't add additional JV coaches and we run large freshman teams and then we run into problems on the JV varsity level? And you don't need to have that answer, but I just think it's something we need to think about. I understand the reason why we have the recommendation. I'm wondering the effects, and or does that just cause a sprawl in our athletic program? So my thing is, if we keep those freshman teams quite large, do we make do we figure it out for the next year, or do we think the teams experience large cuts the next year?
How does it roll forward?
Yeah, sorry,
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say.
No, it's a
I
good
swear
question.
I've had a lot of coffee.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm asking?
It's like
Mr.
the
Reed?
bubble in a school grade.
Yeah.
How does it roll forward?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there is certainly a tipping point at some point. It's hard to answer. It's a sport by sport. We try to keep as many kids in programs as we can and involved as much as best we can. But to your point, there is a tipping point in where certain sports, it's hard to carry larger rosters in certain sports versus others.
I think, Mr. Manfredonia, I like the no cut program as part of the freshman team, but I think it would be good for us to understand how does that roll forward, and more importantly, how it's communicated to the students that are participating and them understanding how competitive it gets as you get into the next grade. I think it's important.
Yeah,
Make
that's
sense?
really my concern.
Yeah.
As we add costs at the freshman level to
Right.
welcome kids into the school, if we have no intention or no staffing to carry them forward,
Right.
are we really doing the right thing?
Right.
And that's a philosophical thing, but because we're adding coaches, it becomes a budgetary thing.
Correct. Thank you. Mr. Sini.
Yeah, and just the understanding of which sports go to cut.
Yeah.
Because again, that will impact the budget. And it's Just to be clear, it's a coach's decision, Mr. Manfredoni?
The coach's decision to make a cut.
Yeah, make it a cut team.
I'd say it's a collaborative effort between
Okay.
coach and athletic director.
Thank you.
It varies year to year depending on how many students come out for a team and larger groups of kids versus small groups of kids. It's fluid.
Thank you.
Mrs. Parent.
Can we get a list of which teams cut? And maybe it may vary from year to year, but if I would love just maybe like 3 years back or even 2 years back, like which teams are cutting and do they cut just to have a better idea of what's going on up there. Thank you.
Mrs. McCammon.
It looks like he's writing.
I'm listening.
Okay. I see you've included the 70-30 split again for the teams with rentals. Can you talk a little bit about how that rolled out this year and whether or not assuming you thought it worked well because you've included it in the budget this year and what it looks like for this year?
Yeah, so we thought it rolled out really well this year. We saw saw some slight increases to some sports and some slight decreases to the parent participation portion. But I think overall it rolled out really well. I think it becomes a more equitable situation for all sports that have those rental fees attached to them. It was like I said, it was probably budget neutral in terms of how it impacted the RC11 budget. But I'd say that there were some sports went up slightly, some sports went down slightly to balance things out.
Thank you.
Mrs. Worm.
Sorry, I didn't realize I still had my hand up. I think it's been asked. I was just kind of looking to see what freshman teams cut as well.
Good. Thank you, Mrs. Worm. Mrs. Achman.
Just a question on the increase in athletic training services. I know we've struggled this year to maintain the two. Is that just an expected salary increase in terms of attracting and retaining two, or what's that increase?
So previously the board approved a transfer out of that account. So because we had salary savings, so that increase is really just reflective of the lower revised budget because of the transfer.
Okay.
There's no actual salary increase baked in.
Thank you.
Any other board questions or comments? We will move on to Board of Finance. Anything from Board of Finance? Taylor?
Yeah, sorry. Hi.
Right.
I don't think we addressed the change here with gate receipts being moved to the budget as a revenue. And actually, I wonder if that ties in with the bursar request at the high school. And I'm just curious with the new approach to these revenues and the accounting for the funds in the student activities account, will we be getting more visibility in the spending in the student activities account? Thanks.
Thank you. We'll move on to RTM F&B. Jack Davis.
Quick question. Is the Turkey Bowl the only sport where we actually take a gate fee in for? Do we not take it for any other sports? At one time we did. I'm just curious. I've been away for a while. Other than that, there's some follow-up questions, but we'll ask them later after taking a better look at the cost per category. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack.
Excuse me, Mr.
Yeah.
Deneen. Mr. James Palin raised his hand. Board of
Great.
Finance.
Sure. Mr. Palin.
Hey, Duke. Yeah, I just had a question, and it kind of hit on one that was asked earlier. Will all gate receipts that we collect now be in the budget, or some of them still get redirected into the activities fund?
Okay, thank you. All right, RTM Education, Ed.
Yeah, one question here. Why do we only have fees to attend boys basketball and some football games?
Okay, thank you.
Demand.
Yeah. CDSP.
We just have two questions. What, if any, savings would be realized if all teams had to cut transportation, uniforms, coaches, et cetera? And why isn't there a policy regarding which teams cut and do not cut?
Thank you, Lori. CPAC, Jamie?
We don't have anything, thank you.
All right, thank you, Jamie. All right, great. We will open up to the public. Michelle, do we
There are
see-
no raised hands at this time in Zoom. Would you like to do in person?
in person, I think we're good. All right, thank you all. Thank you, Mr. Manfredoni. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, Mr. Dean. Thank you, board members.
All right, we'll move on to RC 12 facilities. What's that?
I'm ready.
All right, Mr. Lynch.
Morning.
Good morning.
Um,
He's right there.
2022, 2023 operating budget has a lot of adjustments on the regular supply lines due to increased pricing of commodities and materials. We believe we've added enough funds to cover our expenses for the upcoming year. There is an increase in consultant services. This is due, it's a 5-year radon inspection and the 3-year asbestos inspection. Both have to be done this year, one in July and one in December. Replacement maintenance equipment 073001. This is our continued replacement program of our smaller pieces of custodial and maintenance equipment. We've been doing this ongoing for a number of years, and it's helped keep us moving. We were able to move some equipment around during the flood, as an example, so we didn't lose time in keeping the building, Hindley especially, clean and up and running. Additional custodial and ground staff. The original plan at Ox Ridge was that the building would be 100% completed by this June, and we would have been asking for 2 custodians. I believe even back in the ed specs, it talks about adding personnel when the building was to be completed and expanded. So because we're opening the building up in phases, we're asking for 1 new custodian now, and in next year's budget, there will be another custodial position added, bringing the total of custodians at Oxford up to 5 people. The grounds position, we have this in the budget. This is a position that was it's been asked for a number of years. We just are constantly playing catch up with our grounds around the buildings. It's a little bit of a morale thing for my ground staff to work so hard, and they know they just don't have the manpower or woman power, for that matter, to finish the work. They have to skim stuff. They don't get to cut the grass on a more schedule that's more in keeping with how turf should be taken care of. We have to farm things out that we could be doing in-house, such as our planting beds, taking care of the infields on an annual basis at the 5 baseball diamonds we have that are not turf. We farm out aerifying and overseeding and fertilizing of our grass fields. This is all things we could be doing in-house, cutting brush along the edges of the property to improve sight lines. These are all things we farm out or we don't get to do. Adding this 5th position to the grounds crew would enable us to do that work. We'd be able to do things in a more timely manner, and we would also be able to farm out a lot less than we do. And with that said, open for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. I'll open up to board questions or comments. Mrs. Achman.
On Oxford and the custodian, considering we're opening in phases, and do we need a full year?
No.
On Oxford, I will get it, I swear by noon. On Oxford, considering we are opening in phases and we won't be fully open next year, right? We'll just have the academic wing. Do we need a full FTE or can we do a half FTE? And then once we're fully open, move from there?
The rule of thumb is generally for a school building, you need one full-time custodian for every 20,000 square feet. And the academic wing of Oxbridge that's opening up is going to be about 74,000 square feet. So it's kind of a little under that number, but there's going to be quite a learning curve for the custodians learning how to operate the new systems in the building, the heating, the air conditioning, et cetera. So, there'll be plenty of time that's going to have to be spent getting to know the building. So we feel that, it's needed. And if we find that it's not needed, the other schools, we found that we've had great effect taking the bus drivers and the time between their morning and afternoon runs and placing them in the elementaries to help out at lunch, or placing them in the middle school. So we have a contingency plan if it seems like somebody's standing around with their hands in their pockets.
Okay, and just one quick follow-up while I'm here
Sure.
then. Same thing I asked on the PE teacher in terms of groundskeeper. Is there anything we can do scheduling wise to get that tighter, or is it really a manpower issue?
It's a manpower issue. There's just not enough people for the amount of work that should be done to take care of the grounds the way they deserve to be taken care of.
And Mr. Lynch, to your point of bringing some more stuff in-house, I'm sure working with Rich, you guys, doing some of the stuff that you're farming out now is less expensive if you take it on and you have you're not necessarily looking for additional investments in equipment. It's just the manpower to operate the equipment and do the work.
That's correct. Like we currently, just as example, we'll slit seed the fields once a year and we'll farm it out twice. So we have the equipment. So now we'll slit seed 3 times a year, all in-house.
Okay.
So yes, the equipment's there.
Mr. Sini.
Just as a follow-up, are you going to offset any costs, Mike, on some of this that you farmed out, or is there a net savings there? Sorry.
I didn't have a raise in our grounds budget number, the 065,003, I think it is. That number should have been a wash this year.
So that reflects the savings?
Yes.
Any savings that you're anticipating, I should say?
Yes.
Knowing you'll probably surprise us in a good way.
I hope to.
Just to refresh us, how many custodians are in the existing Oxbridge right now?
There are 3 full-time.
Right. Okay. All right. Yes, Mrs. Parent.
I remembered my mic. I just lost my train of thought. Jeez. No, it's back.
Tara, stop doing that to everyone.
I just heard you say how stretched your staff is. And then I'm also reading about you deferred the building condition survey again, and saying that you're going to rely on the expertise of your staff, which I'm fully confident in the expertise of your staff, but is that something, do you feel confident that that's the right move there?
Yes, the staff doing the building condition survey will be myself and my assistant, Kevin Munrat.
Okay, great, thanks.
I do think it's a good point, Mrs. Parent, and I think, with knowing how well working with Mike almost daily on the Oxbridge and these other things, how much he and his team know these buildings. And, we've gotten positive feedback from Northeast Collaborative and other folks that have been in and out of our buildings over the course of the last couple of years and how good shape our buildings are in. So I think that was based on part of the decision to defer that. Hey, Mike, quick question, just where it fits in here and if you have the dollars you need. Being a gardener, lost a bunch of trees up at the high school. We got a bunch of stumps up there. Do you have replacement built in for that stuff up at the high school that we lost this past year?
We have money this year, improvement of site, and we have an estimate. We got a vendor picked out. He was going to try to get here this past week. I think we're shooting for Martin Luther King Day to go change them. Winter's a perfect time to plant trees.
Great, thank you. Yes, Mrs. Best.
Thank you. I had a question on facility usage rates. I'm just wondering if we should consider raising our rates more than 4% based on how rapidly our fixed costs are increasing. And it doesn't seem like our costs are terribly in line with our neighboring towns' costs for rentals and usage.
Thank you, Mrs. Vest. Are we?
Yeah.
So we pegged the increase with approximately what the increase in the total budget is. I mean, we could certainly take a look and provide what 5% would look like, or 6%, et cetera. And then
I
the board
think,
can make a
a recommendation from you folks. I understand the methodology, but I think no matter what I hear or who I hear it from, its costs are going up on everything. So if it's the right thing to do, I think we'd like to hear a recommendation from the administration on it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great question.
Could we see what a 5 and 6% increase looks like?
I think he's going to run that.
Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Good. Mrs. Ackman.
So Mike, sorry, I'm back to custodian and groundskeepers because I see our contracted janitorial services going up as well. Are those different responsibilities? But if we're adding FTEs, why do we see contracted services going up as well?
The contracted services for janitorial is the company that cleans the high school in the evenings. It's 7 full-time workers that work alongside school district employees at the high school. We bid that every 3 years. And we're going to be in the second year of a 3-year contract. So that's where that number comes from. And then we also, we have a dry mop rental service where the mops get treated with they're sanitized and treated with dust mop treatment to help them pick up dirt and dust. And that rental fee is in that contracted janitorial service too.
Okay, I guess what I'm looking for, and you can tell me if we just haven't realized yet, but if we're to add a groundskeeper, do we see savings anywhere else? Or is it just work that's currently not getting done? So there's really no savings. It's really a true addition.
It's work that's not getting done, and it's work that we're contracting out now and paying for out of our grounds operating budget, our tree care budget. Those budgets have stayed flat rather than go up for the upcoming year. So planning on doing that work in-house.
All right, I'll probably have some more questions on this, but
Okay.
I'm good for now.
And Mike, and going forward, you may be not thinking about it now, but the contracted services in conjunction with the high school staff continues to work, is cost effective.
Oh, yeah. We've been lucky that we've had a string of very good vendors. This is a new vendor this past July, and he's better than the last guy, and the last guy was really good too. So we're getting good service.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Any other, Mrs. McCammon?
Hi, Mike. Would you just remind us of what's in 7020.21, the security, safety and alarms? That's a yearly cost. That's just our contract with the vendor.
Yes, what that is, it's the cost of monitoring and maintaining our burglar alarm system. It's the cost of our camera system, any expansions, any repairs done to that. And it also picks up if there's an overflow from our or an over expense from our fire alarm system. It picks that up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCammon. I don't see a hand raised from Tara or Dave on Zoom, so we're good. We will move to Board of Finance. Board of Finance, anything on facilities?
Nothing for me.
Nothing for me either.
Thank you. RTM F&B, Ed?
Yeah, I have a.
Sorry, Jack.
All right, sorry. Wondering if we can see, Tara touched on it, but I'm going to be a little bit more specific. I'd like to see a fully loaded analysis of adding the groundskeeper, which would include benefits, Social Security, pension, healthcare, because it's much higher than the $80,000. I'd also like to see the offset of what the actual savings are from doing the 2 spreadings, that what we were paying for it, and some of the other things. And I want to remind everyone something that Jay-Z one time said, which is, it costs the town $7.5 million every time we add an FTE to the town over the life of that person's employment. So I think we need a little bit more analysis, especially on this groundskeeper, to understand what's real savings, what's new work that's being done, and what the real cost is of adding an $80,000 contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. RTM education, Ed?
Yeah, two things on the groundskeeper. Why not consider combining the needs for both the school and the town with respect to groundskeeping services, especially when it comes to like snow removal, park, with all the field maintenance, whatever else. And then a second item, have we reverted to our former agreement with the Y where we do not charge each other despite the analysis that showed we are losing potential revenue?
Thank you, Ed. EDSP? We're good. CPAC?
Nothing from us, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Ed, I appreciate the question on combined services. I think that is an outside the budget arena conversation.
Fair point. Yep. Just asking it because all the folks that are on this.
It's fine to ask. It's a great question. I know previously board chairs and myself had conversations at the top of the house with Jamie. I'm sure we'll do the same with Monica and at OPC, but it's just not a budget cycle question. It's a bigger picture question, but thank you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Dr.
I
Adler.
just want to make just a passing comment for Mike, and you mentioned that, the staff take tremendous pride in the buildings, and it's not as if it's not looking great everywhere, but it's just the final, what we would really like to see. For the last 2 years, driving them crazy with photographs, and I think it's just time that we devote the resource to it.
Good, Mrs. Dr.
So is our need based on the day-to-day running of schools? Or is our need based on, and this would go to Mrs. Best's question, and maybe if we raised facility rates, all the usage of the schools and the aftermath of that, right? So, on weekends, if you have a tournament and something, there's a lot of garbage, so our groundskeepers are overwhelmed. So is it just not easily determinable? But I do think that would help us try to understand, do we need to put additional fees into rentals to help offset cleaning supplies? Or is this just the day-to-day actually running a school day, 9 to 3:30?
Well, I think I know what I would say. I don't know, Mike, do you want to answer that, or?
Yeah, it's mostly day to day. There's a fee charged for rental. There's a fee charged for having custodial or maintenance people on staff while somebody's renting the building. So that's kind of a wash. That's overtime. That's not built into the regular budget. These positions are more for the regular day-to-day stuff that's just not getting done or not getting done in a timely manner, or getting done by an outside contractor.
One of them is specific to outside the buildings.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Mr. Senior.
So I was just going to observe, like, this district never had lights, and we never had turkey bowl sized crowds at football games. And so I think there's probably been greater demand even from within the district. I mean, I don't mean to just call out football, but you look at, how many community members have come out to even other games, right? You're seeing tremendous demand and probably increased flower on the student section, but I think that's part of it too, I would imagine.
Good.
And that's why I advocated to get the gate fees back into our budget, because I'm assuming we can use those revenues, a small part anyway, to offset some of those additional costs.
Good. All right. Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael.
Welcome.
We'll move over to capital projects. I think Mr. Lynch is still on the hook, right?
I am. Okay, so the capital budget, which is the first, or it's the last section in the budget book. The last white tab is the capital budget, and the budget was discussed in depth at the November 23rd Board of Ed meeting. But just to go through the items by location, the Darien High School, several years ago, the track received minor repairs and a new color coating, and the understanding at the time was that a in-depth repair would be needed in the next 4 to 6 years. We were at that point. The fuel oil tank is getting groundwater in the space between the inner and outer tank linings. And The fuel pumps are in very poor conditions. Project would remove the large tank and install 2 smaller tanks with new pumping systems. One would be a backup fuel for our heating and hot water, and the other would be diesel fuel for the standby generator. Middlesex Rooftop HVAC is a continuation of work we started last year. The paving on the bus loop and the rest of the parking lot and the sidewalk repairs, it's completing project we started a few years back. We've been phasing it in. Last year we did the service road around the back of the building. The Masonry Restoration is on the original 1937 building. We've had some issues with water on the south side of the building. The north side is discolored from when they tore down a wing from the 1950s when they were doing the addition back in 1999, and the cupola is in need of some repair and repainting also. Hindley, and this holds for Hindley Homes and Royal, the existing elevators are 25 years old. It's getting more difficult to get parts for them, and the elevator manufacturer has a retrofit modernization kit that brings the elevators up to code. This is not in the project for the portable classroom removal because we feel from a safety point of view, we want to get this taken care of now. You know, if you have a child that has a mobility issue and they have to get between the first and second floor, or in the case of Royal down to the cafeteria level, you need the elevator. Tokening School, the gym floor is poured synthetic and it has a large settlement crack running the length of the floor. That's not something that can be repaired, and the plan is to put a wooden floor on top of this. And the wireless clock system, when the building was built, there was no clock system installed. They just relied on little battery operated clocks in all the rooms. Wireless clock system will bring Tokenique in line with all the other school buildings. Central office, the existing HVAC system. This morning I went down to the basement and shut it off like we do before every board meeting so that you can hear each other talk. And the goal is to change it out to a different unit. It is going to be more effective and efficient. The unit currently doesn't have the capacity to do the Board of Ed meeting room and the rest of the main offices on this side of the building that I'm in. If it gets above 85 degrees or below, about 25, you just can't get warm enough or cool enough. It's just the way the building's built. The other thing is changing the video system here. The existing filming system, some of it was brought over from Renshaw Road when we moved in 2013. And it's been added to and pieces patched onto it over the last 8 years. And it really needs to be redone totally to make it more robust, to better handle all of our meetings. And on a district wide, we're asking for some trucks. This has nothing at all to do with the trucks that were damaged in the flood. The trucks damaged in the flood were all newer vehicles, unfortunately. And it also includes funds for a 4th suburban school bus. Ready to answer any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Appreciate it. I move to board questions and comments. Mrs. Ackman.
Well, just on the suburban, we have an analysis later. Do you want
Yes.
to touch upon it then? Okay, because I have some questions on.
Good question. Thank you. Mrs. McCammon.
Just a reminder, will any of these trucks that are being replaced potentially be covered by insurance?
The ones, no, these
Not
are new
these.
trucks, part of the normal replacement
These are normal,
cycle.
sorry.
Yes.
Nothing-
Yeah, that's our normal replacement cycle. The trucks that were damaged, we've already gotten insurance money, and then the board got a different appropriation. And those trucks have been ordered since August. I actually got, last week I heard that one of the trucks is now being manufactured. So still don't know when we're gonna get it, but
Any day now, Mike.
it's at least being built now, right? It's been So
Any other board, Chris? Mr. Maroney?
Yeah, the HVAC in the Board of Education meeting room, does that have any implications with revising the copy center, changing out the AV room or anything like that? Or is that just needed to be done and that and we can retrofit in building projects after that?
well, we're going to use in the perimeter of that room you're sitting in, there's the old ductwork is just right under the floor. And we're going to reuse that. That's part of the plan. So where the existing copy room is and where the maybe potential AV studio area would be, they're going to benefit by getting, heating and ventilating ducted to them right now, whereas now they really don't have that. And the ductwork in the ceiling of the room you're sitting in would be removed.
Mrs. Ackman?
On the upgraded boardroom camera setup and video recording, it appears that we have some of the best recording and video capability in town in terms of doing meetings. So what are we looking to do or improve upon?
Well, my understanding from talking to Jeff DeMayo is that the system we have, we see a really great finished product due to his talent, but it's a bunch of different pieces of mismatched equipment that he's managed to cobble together, and he makes it work. This would be a more robust system. It would just allow for a better product to be delivered to the public.
Okay, and one other.
Sure,
quick question.
Mrs. Ackman.
But I'm going to beat Mr. Davis to the jump on the wireless clock system. Is this the last of it? Have we completed all other wireless clock installations? Where are we with wireless clock systems?
This is the last building to be done. All the other schools have a wireless clock system in them right now. This will be the same type. It's a Primex is the system. And it's on a state bid.
Can the one taken out be donated to Mr. Davis's house?
Or Jack.
Mrs. Parent?
Thanks. Mike, I'm not sure if you know the answer to this question, but back to Ms. Zachman's question about this camera setup in here. There's been some requests from some community organizations to be able to live stream their meetings when it's not a Board of Education meeting. Do you know if this new system that will be implemented has that capability?
I do not know that specific answer.
Good question. We'll get that from Jeff DeMayo if we have the capabilities and other folks that do use this room. Mr. Brown, are we good? Mr. Brown, I see a hand. Good.
Thanks, Duke. Just a really quick question, Mike, in terms of the new AC for the BOE meeting, I know the thought of the copy room, I know it's pretty damp down there. Would this new system be able to handle the humidity to get the air quality where it would need to be if we're going to be running a copy center, or would that be additional?
This is just for the Board of Ed meeting room, the existing copy center, and the storeroom behind the boardroom.
So I can't double dip and use this for both?
No, our real double dipping is we'll do the front lobby too.
Okay.
And that's it.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Brown. Any other board questions? Good. We'll move on to Board of Finance.
Nothing from me.
Nothing, Duke. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Davis, RTM F&B. Thanks as always, Jack, for letting me have fun with you.
That's no problem. My clocks here work. I have a couple of questions, and one I'm going to ask rather gingerly, but I'll ask the first one not so gingerly. On the new asphalt road, have we coordinated the cost of that with the Public Works on the town side for what that cost should be? The second thing is, over the last couple of years, some of the capital expenses projects that we have put in ended up coming in much lower than what was originally budgeted. So on some of these larger projects, I have to admit that there's a concern and would be much interested in hearing how we came up with what that estimate is to ensure that we're not putting something into capital and overcharging our taxpayers only for it to then go into capital reserve because it either costs less than what we originally budgeted. So I'll give you a list on which ones we want greater detail on later. Thanks.
Thanks, Jack. I will move over to Ed at RTMF Education.
Someone would like to see just the historical dollars spent on CapEx. I don't think we need all the detail, but maybe that would just be helpful to just see the trend.
Thank you, Ed. CDSP, we are good. Thank you. CPAC,
Nothing, thank you.
thank you. I will open it up, Michelle, to public comment on capital expenses.
There are no raised hands right now on Zoom. Any questions in person?
I think we are good. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Mr. Lynch. As always, appreciate it. We will move
you.
on now to fixed expenses 25.
So the main areas of fixed expenses include transportation, utilities, and benefits. One of the areas that we're seeing increases in this RC is due to inflation. The cost of utilities, whether it's diesel fuel, heating oil, natural gas, have all risen rather dramatically. Diesel fuel will be about $29,000 more next year than this year with a price point of $230. Heating cost as well as a price point of $230 is another $18,000. Regular pupil transportation does include the bus that was included a couple of years ago for Renshaw Road, but the primary increase is again that diesel fuel. The biggest driver of this RC is again health insurance. Our initial rate guidance was about 15%. Working with our insurance consultant, that did go out to bid with the block of communities. Our rate right
Hey,
now.
Rich, could you do me a favor? Just, I know you're talking to us, which is great. Yeah, just a microphone. Thank you so much.
Our rate renewal is 8.75%. This is about $650,000 less than what it would have been at a 15% renewal. We did get a rate lock for fiscal 24 of 6.9%. We do have 48 claimants in excess of $50,000, 22 in excess of $100,000, and 6 employees in excess of $250,000. So we have had some significant health insurance claims over the last 18 months.
Thank you, Rich. I know, Rich, hats off, Rich. I know you're the art of negotiation with healthcare providers, and it's a never-ending job for the district. So thank you for all the work done and your team behind the scenes on that. I will open it up for board questions on fixed expenses. Mrs. McCammon.
Rich, it's written here, but can you just walk us through the health insurance, that conversation? Please, sort of a little more detail on what happened and how we got here and what we're looking at going forward.
Sure. So currently the district is fully insured. We have an HSA model. So we looked at a number of options. We looked at staying with our existing pool of claims. We looked at the state plan, which is a fully insured PPO plan as opposed to a high deductible plan. And then you are at the mercy of the state in terms of whatever your renewal rate will be. And you are required for a 3-year commitment. And then we also looked at what self-insured would mean. Self-insured was not really a great option for the district at this point. So self-insured, typically what you do is you set up what's called an internal services fund and you pay actual claims. So if a claim comes in at $100,000 for one person, you pay $100,000 for that person. You usually end up taking out something called stop loss insurance, which is an insurance policy against claims that exceed a certain amount. So you might have individual stop loss insurance at $250,000. So if somebody is a $500,000 claim, you're paying that first $250,000, and then you're paying an insurance premium for the rest. Given how our claims have trended really for the last 24 months, self-insurance isn't really a great option for the district. The pool of communities that we joined a year ago yielded a great amount of savings in the last couple of years for the district. Us and a couple other communities were seeing larger renewals than I think everybody would like. So when it went out to bid, Anthem, who is the current provider, was looking at potentially losing a large book of business, which is one of the reasons why they came down. When we look at our claim history over the last 24 months, certain high claimants are expected to fall off just based on the nature of the claim, which is why they were willing to give us that rate cap of 6.9%. So that 6.9% is less obviously than the 8.75 this year. It's less than what we got in our current year of 7.95, and then less than the year before. So at 6.9, 2 years out, it gives us a little bit of breathing room in a couple of years when the 24 budget's put together.
Thank you, Mrs. McCammon. Thank you, Rich. Mrs. Ackman.
So I'm playing with the thought in my head and I'm not really sure it's fully formed yet, so bear with me. Is there any way for us to know, and would it violate HIPAA, if any of our experience this year with these high rates are specific to COVID?
So we don't know who the claim is tied to, but the district just has a lot of cancer claims, and that is typically what's driving the claims.
Okay, never mind.
I'm sorry, Rich, I missed that last part.
Cancer.
So we have
Cancer.
a lot of cancer claims.
Okay, sorry.
Can I ask
Leave it at that.
a related question? Is our experience in line with what other districts experience, or is Darien unique in this way?
So nobody's really like tied together. Typically with health insurance, you have periods where it's very good.
Yeah.
So years back, Darien had really good claim experiences, really good renewals. Right now we have really bad claim experience and that's not a great renewal. Ridgefield, for example, right now is now facing really good claim experience. So their renewal is very low. It's really just a mixture of your population that's covered.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCown. Mr. Brown or Mrs. Worm? No. Okay, we good from a board perspective? All right, good, thank you. We'll go on to Board of Finance. Any questions specific to fixed expenses?
No, Duke.
Hey, Rob.
Nothing on my end. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I'll just ask, I guess, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. I know we talked about this, it's happened a few years in a row where the quotes come in super high and then we're able to get it negotiated. I know we locked in that multi-year contract. Because our experience has been so high, if it continues to be so high, are we going to be lucky in FY24? And then have we run out of options? Is it going to go to like 15 and 25? I mean, it's speculation, but I'd love to know what you think.
Thank you, Taylor. We will go on to RTM F&B. Jack?
Yeah, two things. First of all, on the increase on some of the fixed costs, can we have the increases broken down for the existing staff and what the incremental cost associated with the additional FTEs are, specific on that, so we have a better understanding of that. And number two, on an offline conversation, one of our members is aware of instances where communities have prepaid for their health insurance at a savings, which also potentially included some bonding for that. But that might be a conversation worth having, not here, but offline. So I just throw that out there. I'm not an expert. You're not going to hear from me on it.
Thanks, Jack. Thank you. RTM Education, Ed?
Yeah, two questions. I read or thought I'd heard somewhere that the bus that we added, bus 25, had very low utilization. If that is true and it is not in the use that was expected, would we consider would we consider dropping it to save money? And then the second question, which is going to be the same as the groundskeeper, but would you perhaps look with the town to see about doing a combined property insurance policy to save the money?
Thank you, Ed. We'll move on to CDSP.
Will there be a comprehensive review of the bus walking radius policy?
Thank you, Lori. CPAC?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you, Jamie. Michelle, we will open it up to public.
Ms. Jackie Miller, you are unmuted and recognized.
Hi, Jackie, can you hear us?
I can.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Can you hear me? Hi. So my name is Jackie Miller. I live at 84 Fitch Avenue. The number 25 bus is terrific and it is well utilized, especially in the afternoons. And we're grateful that the district continues to provide it. But it doesn't solve all of the issues, especially for students who live over by Hollow Tree Ridge. And because it's a temporary bus, we have not rerouted buses 1 and 2, which continue to be overcrowded. So we'd love to see a permanent addition of the bus, which would allow us to really look at the stops that the other buses make. Also, this year, the bus was used in the afternoon to transport athletes to the Y. And I'm wondering if that means that some of the expense for the bus should fall under RC 11. And finally, the contract with First Student expires in June of 2023. And I was wondering if that makes this a good time for us to really look at the walking policy and finally get our buses in order. Thank you.
Jackie. Other hand raised, Michelle?
Kelly Gartell, you are unmuted and recognized.
Kelly, we
You're
can't
still
hear you, Kelly. There we
Okay,
go.
I'm back. I just want to piggyback on what Jackie had to say about Police 25, first by thanking you all for approving it. It's definitely been well utilized. I'm also jumping in to kind of represent some of the rising middle schoolers and also the grammar schools as looking for a more permanent solution for our area if it is looking at reallocating, other buses, just really making sure that we're still focusing on it and continue to have a bus for this area, and also even looking at the radius policy as well.
Thank you, Kelly.
Sure.
Any other hands, Michelle?
There are no more raised hands at this time.
Great, thank you. Thank you all. We'll move on to the next RC 13 music.
Hello, I'm here. Colleen Thompson.
Sorry, I couldn't figure out who it was.
Someone's making it. Someone's making a smoothie or vacuuming. Vacuuming.
I got an open spot from 1 to 1:30 if you want to come over.
All right, Colleen, go ahead. We look forward to hearing from you.
Hello, thank you. So the music department in Darien provides comprehensive instruction for all students K through 12. All students in pre-K through 8 have music classes twice a week. And we also offer strings instruction for 3rd through 12th graders, band instruction for 4th through 12th graders, and choral instruction for 4th through 12th graders. As all school operations were interrupted by COVID, music is no exception. And while we had some reduction in what we were able to offer this year due to COVID, we're happy that we were able to get many of our programs back up and running to full capacity this year. And we're resuming in-person band, chorus, and orchestra instruction, as well as concerts. The following budget proposal primarily reflects the cost of updating and maintaining our current programming and ensuring that the students and teachers have access to the most current educational tools and resources necessary to create a safe, stimulating learning environment while continuing to offer high quality programming and instruction. We were pleased to be designated as one of the best communities for music education by the NAM Foundation the previous year, and we plan to continue to achieve at high levels in the music department. I have really no major changes or asks this year in the budget. As you'll see on page 123, just the comprehensive overview of each line. There are several areas where we've asked for an increase, and that's specifically tied to equipment and supplies. But for every increase in one line, we were able to find areas to reduce costs in other lines. So essentially, our operating budget came in, very, very commensurate to previous years. So I really don't have all that much to explain in the budget unless there are specific questions to how certain lines are, how things are currently budgeted.
Well, thank you, Colleen, and thank you for all that you've done over the course of the year. I've been able to attend some of the concerts and choir programs, and it's, as always, exceptional. So, and I know it's a great outlet for the students and the tutor singers. You had an opportunity to be at the Palace in Stamford, and just great stuff going on. So thanks for doing everything in an unusual year and getting it done. Much appreciated. We will open it up to questions or comments from the board from a music standpoint. Mrs. Best.
Thank you. And I'll echo, I had occasion to attend many concerts last month and I enjoyed every one of them. So thank you. I was just curious if this budget includes the funds for the required attire for students who are enrolled in classes that require performances in a particular uniform. And I think that it doesn't. I hope I'm asking this in the right place. So assuming that it's not in here, I'd be curious to find out in the future what that cost would be.
Sure. Mr. Rudel, is that something that you'd like me to address, or is that something to address at the board level?
If you want to address it, that's fine, and we can include it in board question and answers.
Sure. The current budget does not include, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Sure. No, the current budget does not include the cost of uniforms. That has typically been something that has been picked up by the parents and students. We can address it. We address it through fundraising. And if there are parents or students who have trouble purchasing the uniforms that are required, typically those are required at the high school level. The elementary and middle school students usually just have a black and white type outfit that they're asked to wear. But when you get to the high school, elective ensembles is where students purchase their uniforms. We can discuss putting uniform costs into the budget in the future, but it's not something that came up for this budget cycle.
Thank you. Just to follow up, yes, that was my understanding. It's just if all of the materials are required for all of our curricular classes by the district, then I would love to know what that cost is so we can see if there's room for that.
And they always look so nice when they're all
They
dressed
do.
up. They really do.
We own a few of those uniforms.
Mrs. Farren.
Thank you.
I was just gonna echo what Ms. Beth just said. I would love to know what that number is. If we're requiring it, we buy uniforms for our athletes, in my opinion, we should be providing uniforms for all of our extracurricular.
This is curriculum.
programs, so
Yep.
it is curricular. So I would love to know what that number is. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Parent. Any other board questions or comments? I don't see Mrs. Worm. I see Mr. Brown. Just real quick, and Rich, this is more maybe at a top level. I see, furniture and equipment. They're looking for music stands and dollies and stuff like that. We have a plan behind the scenes to look at what we have at Oxridge, since we're buying all new over there, and filter that through the district before we make a decision to donate or get rid of it.
Yep.
Well, it's always great to buy new. I mean, we have a whole school full of stuff, so, okay, thanks. Any other board questions? Good. We'll move on to Board of Finance. Any questions specific to music?
None.
Thank you. RTM F and B, Jack?
None.
Thank you. RTM Education, Ed? Ed? All right, we'll take that as a none. CDSP?
None.
Thank you. CPAC?
Just one, thank you. I'm wondering if there's been within the department, professional development around differentiating instruction and the use of assistive technology. Thank you.
Thank you. Michelle, we'll open up to the public.
There are no raised hands at this time.
Okay, great. Colleen, thank you. And we look forward to all the good work that you continue to do for the district with the students and your team. It's always a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colleen.
We'll move on to RC 14 Art.
Morning.
Morning, Jackie.
Morning.
How are you?
Good. I just like to start by just thanking the Board of Education and Administration for all of their continued support of our art programs at DES. We currently have our K-12 art show up at UCBC through the end of the month. So if you haven't gotten a chance to check that out yet, please head over. Charlie's just always been really supportive of showing our artwork for months at a time. So we appreciate that. There are no major changes in our budget for next year. A little bit of an increase in our membership to the Art of Education resource for our teachers, just the cost per teacher has gone up a little bit for that, and a slight decrease in our repairs budget because we're not needing to get the chimneys cleaned next year because they were just replaced by the custodians this year. Other than that, it's kind of the same as this year, and we feel like we have all of the resources that we need.
Great, Jacqueline. Thank you so much. The art at the Upper Crest Bagel is phenomenal. Not that I have very many bagels, but it's always it's always fun to see the kids in there looking at their artwork and they're sitting there with their parents at the table. So well done, and thank you to Upper Crust for being such a good community member, and thanks for all that you do. Again, having participated throughout the year in art shows and seeing some of the art that comes home. Thank you for making me build more shelving at home. But thank you again for all the work that's done on that side.
Great.
Board questions. Jill.
Hi, Jacqueline. The Art for Education was new last year. Can you comment a little bit on the use of it this year and what you got out of it, please?
Absolutely. I mean, our teachers are kind of loving the accessibility and go-to-ness for the professional development resources and the videos that they're able to watch from other art teachers that have been posted and on their site. Also, it's been great when we've kind of needed a go-to for remote students to have kind of a whole kit of ready projects, the whole lesson ready to rock and roll. Our elementary teachers having 6 different grade levels. It's just an awesome resource where they don't have to reinvent the wheel every time for different handouts or posters or kind of a jumping off point for projects for them just when they have so many classes back to back. It's just been a great resource for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have to say the art, and they should be phenomenal, has been a soothing and a very helpful experience for many of our students when you go into those classrooms. When you go into those classrooms, you get a real sense of social emotional learning going on just by the presence and what they're doing and the climate and stuff in there, in addition to the quality of the work they're doing. So thank you, Jackie, and your teachers for that.
Thank you.
We need some updated artwork in the board meeting room, Jacqueline.
It's on my list. I've got the measurements and we're waiting for enough prints to come through from our AP digital photography class. So it is happening. You should see it within the next month as well.
And then if we can do it at an early session, we'd love to have the students come into the board and show us their artwork. I think that would be phenomenal.
I will make that happen. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Can I actually?
Yeah, sure, Mrs. McCann.
Add on, thank you. Add on to the question I asked Jacqueline. I asked you last year too, whether Art for Education would provide any support for differentiated art learning. We had the question about music. I'd love to know sort of where you are on being able to differentiate that as a department, and is the Art for Education supporting that at all?
I think it is supporting it because it's, offering a wide variety of different projects for different levels. I think everything we do in the art classroom is differentiated where students' needs are coming into it and pushing their creative growth from where they come to class with us and where we get them to. So I would argue that, or say that our teachers are differentiating for every student, and the Art of Education is just offering a broader background of learning for teachers and also resources for projects and materials, content knowledge that they can access right at their fingertips when it's convenient for them at the digital platform.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. McCammon. All right, we will move over to Board of Finance and any questions specific to RC 14 art.
None for me. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move over to RTM F&B. Jack.
Nothing. Thanks.
Thank you, Jack. RTM Education. Ed.
Nothing.
Thank you, Ed. We'll move over to CDSP. We are good. Thank you, CDSP. Move over to CPAC.
Jill asked my questions, so nothing from us. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle will open up to the public.
There are no raised hands at this time.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Jacqueline. Appreciate the time with us this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie.
We'll move over to Library Media, RC 21.
Hello. Thank you to the Board of Ed and to our administration for our continued support of our school libraries. Our libraries continue to serve as learning hubs for school communities, as well as supporting and helping train our teachers as they've gone back and forth in different teaching environments. Our proposed budget remains relatively flat compared to last year. We do have some shifts among the accounts as we are shifting from more print resources to more digital resources or to different types of resources. So I'm happy to answer any questions regarding that.
Joan, thank you so much. Appreciate all the work that's done here. Library Media that continues to change, and we're making a lot of investments overall in the libraries as we go forward. I'll open up to board questions. Looking for any hands. Jill, Mrs. McCavan?
I have a comment. I think it belongs outside of the budget process, but I would just love to hear from you all sort of about, this is an iterative process of looking at how we use libraries. And I think it would be nice to hear from you again about sort of where we are in what the usage of libraries look like. Not today, though.
Be happy to do that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I will move it over to Board of Finance. Any questions specific to library media, RC 21?
None, Duke.
Thank you. RTM F&B, Jack?
None, thanks.
Thank you, Jack. RTM Education, Ed?
None.
Thank you. CDSP? Thank you. CPAC?
Nothing, thank you.
Thank you so much. Michelle, we'll open up to the public.
There are no raised hands at this time.
Okay, great. Do we want to, we are at a point now where we've caught up a little bit. We are at a lunch break, which is scheduled for 12:30. Do you want to break or move forward with a couple more RCs?
When do you do health? Oh.
Oh, yeah, where are we with people ready? That's good, thank you.
What do you mean readiness of?
Or should we go to do another one or two RCs and see if we can shoot for a 12:30?
Yeah, if they're online. Is Jeff online for technology?
I do not see him or Alicia.
Okay, Alicia's not there either.
Okay. So we good with taking a break then? All right, so we're scheduled for a 30-minute break. Knowing this crew, I'm not sure we'll be gone a full 30 minutes, but yeah,
Can you
so
give a holler?
We'll reach out. right?
yeah, so
We'll
the
reach out.
administration will reach out and get them scheduled to start by 12:30. All right, so we'll go into a lunch break now. Thank you for everyone on Zoom. We'll see you shortly.